Good morning. So, my friends are still asleep and did not wake up, but I have Heidi, if she can count as a great audience member, right? Yeah. So, hopefully she counts. But, okay. So, today I'm presenting on medicinal marijuana, just to get a reminder. So, okay. Ready and as young adults, a part of the 21st century, we can all agree we've had our own version of a war on drugs. I'm talking about recreational medicinal marijuana use. My goal today is to confess why I believe medicinal marijuana should remain illegal, despite all the projected research in favor of legalization. A lot of focus and hype is all about how much it can help us, and not as much light is shined on how it can actually cause negative effects in us, other than the typical argument of it's bad for you and bad things will happen. People glide over the actual reported negative effects. So, although research claims that regular cannabis use can relieve chronic muscle and joint pain, which is an issue that millions of Americans face on a day-to-day basis, the substance should remain illegal because, one, there are a vast number of adverse, underemphasized side effects that would cause the patients more harm than good. And two, many of the research in favor of cannabis use for the relief of chronic pain is not actually credible due to their methodology and research design. So, as we dive in, I want to first discuss these adverse effects. Next slide. So, the problem. So, while marijuana has been claimed to be awesome for muscle and joint pain, there are a lot less reports available describing the long-term psychological effects marijuana has on the psyche. They talk about the effects on the brain, but not the actual mind, and this is really crucial and is a really major issue because the specific effects that they're talking about in Clifford's piece was that it causes panic, anxiety, depression, paranoia, dissociation, altered judgment, agitation, all of these issues, psychological issues that come up. Also, an increased cardiac output, which is constant heightened arousal, which is an issue with anxiety, is constantly angst. So, these traits are a really big issue because it is harder to see someone struggling internally from the outside. Like, you can see someone and they can seem totally fine and perfect and they're fighting their battles, but are struggling a lot more than people credit. And not a lot of people feel comfortable opening up about that. And this could be explosive for patients already suffering from cognitive disorders like anxiety and depression because it just makes it that much worse. And the substance would then become counterproductive because you don't want to cause anxiety in patients already in a stressful time and already at a heightened arousal. So it's counterproductive. And this would just be terrible for the opioid epidemic because you're just trading one issue out for another, physical distress for psychological distress. And because of these underreported adverse effects, I was wrong in my first speech to have presented marijuana as a solution to the opioid epidemic. It would be devastating as it would, like I said, just be swapping one issue out for another, and for that I counter my last piece. So, moving forward. Furthering my countering of my past works, I'd like to go ahead and attack the pieces in support of legalization of marijuana because it alleviates chronic pain. So first was Bruce and colleagues, and while their research showed that it was effective and preferred, They only had 30 participants, and that makes it really close to impossible to generalize their results to other groups of people. I mean, the likelihood that their results happen due to chance is much more likely whenever there's less people. And on top of it, because there are only 30 participants, all these people with their diagnoses and their individual types of pain were all molded and grouped together into one group. And that's just not how a study should really try to go about things. They should try to split everything up based on the diagnoses, because patients can't respond differently to a treatment depending on their diagnoses, and patients with the same diagnoses can respond differently to the same treatment, and all these things should be really kept track of. And it just, with more participants, it could have been split up and really been more generalized to other people. And on top of this, the experimental design, it was a longitudinal study, and that in itself poses issues because, I mean, cross-sectional design's the best. If you don't know, that's like a combination between doing a short-term and a long-term study. And this is solely the short-term. Wait a minute. I'm so stupid. Good thing we do this. So, alright, because they did not use in a longitudinal experimental design, so because of that, they had short intervals. I knew that sounded funny. And over a short period of time, and thus they didn't really see the long-term effects that this substance has on chronic pain. They looked at just from a short period of time. So overall, that source is kind of deemed uncredible. So next is Abess and colleagues, also 2017. And while they had more participants, I think almost 1,000, over half were female. And you'd want half to be female, but you wouldn't want, because, you know, half male, half female, but you wouldn't want over half to be one gender over another. On top of this, they're predominantly white. Only 4% was non-white. On top of this, that's a whole issue on its own. On top of this, on average, the participants were middle-aged and overweight. That's significant that at the very least 70% were overweight, like meaning like 50% were overweight, then like 10% were obese, and 10% were morbidly obese, like to combine to 70%. And that's almost the entire sample that has weight issues, and that plays a role in marijuana usage because, as I previously stated, it has an effect on your heart rate. So, and that can exceed whenever there are patients that have weight issues. On top of this, their methodology, they got their results from self-reports, and that's an issue all on its own. Also, people sometimes change what they put on their self-reports because they feel that they want to put the answer that they expect the researchers to expect to find. That sounds kind of funny. But like, if the study's all about, yes, let's find the awesome benefits of marijuana, like let us know the benefits, they're going to be primed in their head to like already in their responses be like thinking about those benefits, like wanting to put what they want to hear. They as in the researchers. And also, some people will change their responses just because they want to sound better, better physically and better like as a human, like morally, not, you know. So if somebody feels bad about something about themselves or something, they're gonna kind of, it's up to their own discretion how they appear on a self-report. So it can just basically open the door for more inaccuracies. And sorry, I just want to write that down. Open door for inaccuracies. And then, and then in conclusion, I felt after reevaluating my research that medicinal marijuana should remain illegal because it can cause paranoia and anxiety, and because there are errors in my past supporting evidence with their participant pools, designs, and methodology. And so, as we are the driving force in our generation, we should really think about this moving forward and vote no at our next general election, and vote reconsider how you feel. Okay. And yes, and talk to your local representative about treatment facilities. Bam. Okay, thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful day.